In this week's drive, we catch the closest finish in years, go back to the future in the latest retro cruiser, travel straight to the scene of the crash, and see how those crazy Russians go racing. All this and more in this week's Drive. The Le Mans Endurance Series competitors travelled to Monza for the second round of their championship, over 1,000 fast kilometres. The teams battled hard for a little more than 5 hours, with the lead undecided until the final hour. Payanari Shimoda, winner at Spa in April, led the opening laps in the Zetec that he shared with Tom Chilton, but a brief off-track moment cost the team a bent wishbone and 6 laps. Jean-Christophe Bouillon and Emmanuel Collard in their Pescarolo Judd pushed hard throughout the race. The French pair ran into a gear selection problem which put Collard into the gravel during the second hour, but the two men adapted their driving style and coped with a last-minute rain shower to take victory. Owner of the team, legendary French driver Henri Pescarolo, was himself a top-line sports car driver and scored a hat-trick of Le Mans victories for Matra. In 1972 with Graham Hill, and in 73 and 74 teamed with Gerard Larousse. Christian Pescatore, Michel Bartian and Tony Sela won the GT class after the team Menex Ferrari was given a 3-minute penalty for pit lane infractions and finished second. Pescatore's teammate Fabrizio Gollan suffered a puncture and was pushed off the track by Shimoda in the final hour while leading, but it was the Lamborghini which surprised everyone briefly. Peter Cox and Norman Simon led the class in their Japan Lamborghini, but suffered the second of the team's engine failures and failed to finish. The lead was undecided until the final hour when Nicolas Manassian pitted the Creation Zetec from second place with a water leak. Martin Short, João Barbosa and Vanina X, daughter of 6-times Le Mans winner Jackie, finished third in their Dallara. Scoring their first ever podium, Sam Hignett, John Stack and Haruki Kurosawa finished second despite problems in the closing stages. Manassian circulated ahead of Bouillon, but 5 laps down on the leaders after their extended pit stop. The LMP2 class was won by the Paul Belmondo racing team of Vincent Voss, Karim Ojay and Claude-Yves Gosselin after a busy race. Jean-Christophe Bouillon and Emmanuel Collard made up for their disappointment at Le Mans to win the second round of the Le Mans Endurance Series at Monza.
Yes, we are very pleased with the result because it's only third race we did with this car, and we finished twice second and now we won, so it's a great result, and we hope more for the end of the season.
Marc Lieb and Xavier Pompidou won the GT2 class despite driving a 5-year-old Porsche. Daytona's NASCAR race was delayed by 2.5 hours by rain. Americans don't race in the wet, so special track drying vehicles were used to clear the track of as much moisture as possible. On lap 36, Jeff Gordon, in the number 24 car, signaled to other drivers that he was headed to pit road, but apparently not everyone noticed. Just behind Gordon, Jamie McMurray and car 42 saw Gordon's signal and slowed down. However, when Scott Riggs saw McMurray slow suddenly, he moved up the track and clipped Mark Martin, and that started the chain reaction crash that involved 11 cars. Riggs said later he had no idea that Gordon or McMurray were slowing down.
Several cars down pit road. I think somebody was trying to come to the pits, BP, and he did tonight.
Later in the race, Michael Waltrip's right rear tyre went flat, causing him to spin. Points leader Greg Biffle got caught up in the wreck, but after his crew effected some repairs, he returned to the race. With 15 laps to go, Jeff Burton, racing high in the orange car, pinched in towards the middle, where Carl Edwards was, at the same time that Kevin Harvick also tried a move to the middle. That caused a pile-up that also involved Scott Wimmer, Kyle Busch, Elliott Sadler and Robbie Gordon. Tony Stewart escaped any trouble and, after leading 151 of 160 laps, took the checkered flag for victory in a race that actually ended in the early hours of Sunday morning after the rain-delayed start. By leading for 151 laps, Stewart set the Daytona record for most laps led in a 400-mile race. It was Stewart's first NASCAR victory in 14 starts at Daytona International Speedway, but his second consecutive win after he won the last round on the racetrack in Sonoma, California. With the win, he also moved to third in the points standings. Indy Racing League rookie driver Danica Patrick claimed another first on her short IRL resume.
You can try pulling fifth if you want.
The 23-year-old won her first IRL pole position, becoming only the second woman to take the top spot for a race.
Super nice job. That's the pole.
Her hot lap averaged more than 214 miles an hour.
Mira, nice job.
I still stay consistent with the fact that I'm not concerned or have, I'm not preoccupied with the idea of being the first woman to do things. I'm more interested in winning races, winning championships.
She's the first woman to have led the Indianapolis 500. Sarah Fisher started from pole position in 2002 in Kentucky. The next day, she led the race off to a clean start as the field took the green flag. Dan Wheldon's strategy of pitting earlier than the rest of the field appeared to have him headed to his 5th victory in 8 races this season. Wheldon led for a total of 111 laps in the race, despite starting 11th. Danica lost the lead on the opening lap, got up to 4th late in the race, but never challenged for the lead. She also had problems getting away from pit stops because her crew had turned off her traction control.
Buddy Rice, the 24, Roger Yasukawa.
On lap 55, Roger Yasukawa got loose and his car backed into the outside wall, which caused considerable damage. It was the 6th DNF for Yasukawa this season. Wheldon, the IRL points leader, took the lead with 3 laps left after defending race champion Buddy Rice had to pit for a splash and dash of fuel with only 5 laps to go.
3.3, he's away. Here come the leaders.
But Tony Kanaan, who pitted in the 190th lap, went ahead on the next lap and held on to beat Wheldon by 0.012 of a second, the 6th closest finish in IRL history for his 5th career win. Vitor Meira, running just behind the leaders, made a last-second dive to the inside, crossing below the white line, but still came up 3rd. Off to northern Italy now, where Moto Guzzi motorcycles are built for round 2 of the F1 Powerboat World Championship. Most of the crowd were hoping for a win for local favourite Guido Capellini, who started in pole position. But it was defending world champion American Scott Gilman who got away quickest, taking the lead from Capellini. Gilman, who picked up his 3rd world title last year, finished 2nd in May's first round in Portugal. Meanwhile, Como native and 8 times world champion Capellini was fighting his way through the field in an attempt to get back on terms. Gilman looked well in control, slicing past Fabrizio Bocca and seemingly on his way to maximum points. His teammate, Tani Al-Kamzi, was faring less well, and Capellini's hard-charging Tamoil boat soon swallowed him up. But on lap 17 out of 45, the race was to take a dramatic turn when Gilman's boat capsized, bringing out the yellow flag. The Emirates driver was lucky to escape without injury. When racing resumed, Capellini, the winner in Portugal, was quickly away and produced a daring manoeuvre to take the lead. Finland's Sami Salio was Capellini's nearest challenger after the restart, but he would be lapped by the Italian, who was in a race of his own out at the front. On lap 42, 3 short of the full race distance, a buoy brought a premature end to Bob Trask's afternoon, and the race was stopped to hand Capellini his 4th consecutive victory on Lake Como, as well as his 2nd win from 2 this season. Britain's Andy Elliott took 3rd place to win a place on the podium, but the day was all about Capellini, who now leads fellow Italian Fabrizio Comparato by 23 points in the overall standings, with Gilman and Salio 2 points further back. Once they threatened to upset the Formula One order, but since winning races in 1998 and 99 with Damon Hill and Heinz-Harald Frentzen, finishing 2nd in the Constructors' title, Silverstone-based Jordan Formula One have sunk to the bottom of the grid. Charismatic Irish former banker Eddie Jordan sold his share in the team in January. New Russian-born owner Alex Schneider, now a Canadian citizen, heads the global trading and investment business Midland Group. He had planned to set up his own Midland Formula One team from scratch, but acquiring Jordan enabled him to acquire valuable hands-on experience.
We're remaining committed to the sport and to the team. The sport is going through a difficult time now, but from another point of view, the viewership is increasing this year. The sport is becoming more interesting with the new regulations this year. The competition is more interesting, so we are committed to it. We're committed to the team. We're committed to turn the team around and to make the team more successful next year.
This year, the team's using engines from Toyota.
Everything is going according to plan. At the end of this year, we will rebrand the team into Midland F1. It will be a global team next year with a distinct Russian flavor. We will take all the positive things that we've learned this year, and we will improve the team for next year.
With rookie drivers Tiago Monteiro and Narain Karthikeyan, Jordan had few expectations this year, so the team is delighted to have scored 11 points and a podium finish at the farcical US Grand Prix.
There's a lot more to come, you know. I mean, obviously we're still evolving. I'm learning so much every time I'm in the car that I'm really looking forward for the next races, because I know that every race I'm improving and I'm learning, and we are improving the car as well. We will have the new car soon, so we want to close the gap to the others. That's our main, goal for the moment, and take any opportunity we can to score more points. But there's more to come.
Michael and Ralf Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello all drove for Jordan early in their careers. Here we are, midway through 2005, and next year's cars are already appearing. In a classic case of if it's not broken, don't fix it, the 2006 Chrysler PT Cruiser is almost the same as this year's model. It just gets an updated nose and tail, including a new grille, new headlights with a scallop along the bottom, new round fog lights and a new rear spoiler. The good news is that the power's up. The high-output turbo engine gets a 10-horsepower boost and is now rated at 230 horsepower. A new instrument panel features larger gauges, new rotating air vents and, wait for it, a new analog clock. But not all of the changes to the PT can be seen. To reduce road noise, the PT has an all-new acoustic package, which includes better sealing around the doors, windows, rear floor pan and reverberant cavity area, as well as increased sound absorption in the trim panels. Improvement to the sealing around the heating, ventilation and air conditioning system, as well as added insulation to the dashboard, reduce powertrain noise. Wind noise has also been reduced by the use of redesigned seals in the doors and added foam in the A-pillar. As a result, the interior of the new Cruiser is up to 5 decibels quieter, depending on driving conditions. Perhaps most importantly, all models in this icon of retro cool get MP3 player capability. In addition, the Cruiser convertible also gets an all-new interior, including new seat trim and fabrics. But this car's not just about drop-top sun worshipping. Even with the roof up, it offers more interior cargo space than its competitors, and the seats may be configured in 9 different ways. There are 2 convertible models, Touring and GT. The Touring gets a basic 150 horsepower 2.4-litre engine and a 5-speed manual front-wheel drive. An optional 2.4-litre turbocharged engine that produces 180 horsepower with a 4-speed automatic transaxle is available. A high-output 2.4-litre turbo engine with a 5-speed Getrag manual transaxle powers the Cruiser Convertible GT. This delivers the same 230 horsepower, and a 4-speed automatic is also available. All Cruiser convertibles are built at the Toluca assembly plant in Mexico. And it seems that the designers at Jeep have been looking at the success of rival He-Man brand Hummer and decided that if they can't beat them, they'd best copy them. The big, new and very square Jeep Commander is the result, Jeep's first 7-seater SUV. For the first time in a Jeep, there are 3 rows of seats, each row slightly higher than the one in front. This stadium seating makes forward viewing easier, and the second and third rows fold forward to create a flat load floor. The stepped roof provides second and third row occupants with plenty of headroom, and besides the front row sunroof, there are skylights, complete with shades, over the second row. Interestingly, Commander is only 2 inches longer than the existing Grand Cherokee, even though it's designed to accommodate 3 rows of seats. And since they have the same wheelbase of 109.5 inches, the Commander claims to be as manoeuvrable and off-road capable as its more attractive stablemate. The Commander offers a choice of 3 full-time 4-wheel drive systems, 2 transfer cases giving brake traction control system and electronic limited slip differentials, and 3 different engines: the 5.7-litre Hemi V8, the 4.7-litre V8 and the 3.7-litre V6. To my way of thinking, this has to be one of the least appealing vehicles ever built, truly a victim of the ugly stick. The Motocross World Championship contenders were in Sweden for the latest round, and after maximum 50-point hauls from his previous 2 outings, Ben Townley was hoping to continue his charge in round 10. Despite, by his standards, a quiet few events, Stefan Everts was still on course for yet another crown, but a sluggish opening lap left him with work to do. At the front, Jonathan Barragan was setting the pace, but Joshua Coppens pushed harder, and the pressure finally told. Barragan came off his bike on lap 4. Coppens and Townley slipped past, and that proved to be the race's decisive moment. Everts was down in the pack, but working his way forward. Coppens stayed ahead and took the checkered flag for the first moto in 40 minutes and 13.7 seconds. Fellow New Zealander Townley was just 0.4 of a second behind him. Barragan recovered to take 3rd, with Everts fighting back up to 4th place. Race 2, and Coppens wasted no time. The Honda rider inherited the lead on lap 1 and held on to it. Another Belgian former world champion, Joel Smets, kept the leaders in sight. Yet another Belgian, Steve Ramon, managed to get ahead of Townley. Japanese rider Yoshitaka Atsuta proved to be only a minor hold-up for Everts. With Smets pulling away, Townley found himself battling with Barragan. But Barragan had more problems and finished 11th after stalling his KTM. Ramon was hoping for a podium place, but was out of luck as his countryman, Everts, passed him to claim 4th. Coppens took the checkered flag again, with Joel Smets 2nd this time. Townley finished 3rd, with Everts 4th. 50 points for Coppens, 42 for Townley and 36 for Everts, but the Belgian maintains his lead in the standings. Next, it's Sun City and the South African Grand Prix. Practice for the Czech Speedway Grand Prix was cancelled due to poor weather, but racing eventually got underway. The 6th out of 9 rounds, and Tony Rickardsson was looking for another good result to cement his lead in the championship. In Heat 5, he crashed on the first corner with Jaroslav Hempel, but neither was seriously hurt. In Heat 11, local favourite Alice Drummel slid heavily as well and was excluded from the heat, although he did walk away from the crash intact. Towards the end of the 20 heats, however, the weather and the track began to deteriorate, and in the final heat, Bjarne Pedersen suffered a dramatic fall. However, the Danish rider was able to walk away from the track unharmed and went on to take part in the rerun. As rain fell heavily, there were concerns that racing would be abandoned, but race directors decided the Grand Prix would continue despite the tough conditions. British rider Scott Nicholls led the standings after the heats, but he failed to qualify for the final. Instead, Hempel took top honours in the first semi-final, with Pedersen of Denmark the other rider through to the last 4, obviously 100% fit now following his earlier fall. Current world champion Australian Jason Crump just managed to make it into the last 8, but he won the second semi-final ahead of Rickardsson, who qualified for his 10th consecutive final. The lineup promised a thrilling final race. Rickardsson was looking for his 5th Grand Prix victory of the year, and his start was perfect. He took the early lead and never looked back, extending his advantage as the laps progressed, and crossed the finish line well ahead of the rest of the field. It was an easy win for the man of the moment in Speedway. Pedersen came second, with Hempel third and Crump last. Rickardsson now has 145 points after 6 rounds, with a 54-point lead over Jason Crump, and he looks set to take a 6th World Championship title from his Australian rival. Nicky Pedersen lies 3rd in the overall standings with 78 points, and the Grand Prix circus now moves to Sweden. And finally, Moscow may have failed in its attempt to host a Formula One Grand Prix, but despite this, young Muscovites have been enjoying a cheaper form of motor racing in Soviet-era cars with spectacular results. Drivers between the ages of 12 and 18 race in Okas, which were developed in 1986 to be the cheapest cars in the country. The Fiat-derived cars are powered, if that's the right word, by a 650cc twin-cylinder engine, essentially half of a Lada Samara 1300. The races cover 3 600-metre laps of a track in Moscow's northwestern suburbs. Production of the Oka started at the end of 1987. Since then, over 300,000 have been built. Last year, the factory produced 41,300 minicars in 82 different colours and 23 levels of trim. The cars are now exported to America, but without engines, as the Russian motors utterly fail to meet US emissions requirements. Instead, they're offered with electric motors, batteries, and a top speed of 25 miles an hour. Despite ending up on his roof and being towed from the track in this heat, 15-year-old Mikhail Loboda was the day's winner. Driving a cheap and simple car has distinct advantages when it comes to between-race repairs.
I like it very much because it is really extreme. I don't know what else to say. I simply like driving cars. And that's why I came to this sport.
It might be mud, rollovers and breakdowns now, but in 10 years, this kid could be standing on the top step of the podium in Bahrain, Shanghai, Monte Carlo or any other Formula One track. Race meetings are held here every 2 weeks, building up to a grand finale in late August. Proving that the Russians do things differently to the Americans, Russians water their tracks instead of drying them out. Senior drivers race in slightly more powerful Ladas, not the tough, rugged, almost indestructible Niva Cossack four-wheel drives, but the Fiat 124-derived saloons, suitably modified for the rough and tumble of Russian autocross-style racing. This includes a stout roll cage, removing glass and welding on new body panels. The original Lada wasn't just a Fiat clone. With temperatures ranging from 50 degrees C down to 60 below freezing, major roads riddled with potholes and minor roads often less than muddy tracks, the delicate 124 needed sheet metal 30% thicker, 150 millimetres of ground clearance even when fully laden, and new rear axles designed to run constantly in mud and snow.
This race for survival is a great place to let go of most of your negative emotions. When the adrenaline starts working, it helps to make the most of your abilities and to get rid of negative emotions.
In Slavic religions, Lada was the goddess of merriment, youth, love and beauty, but I'll bet she didn't fall off the stage. So, whether you're racing past midnight, throwing away the lead, or just punting the world's ugliest car, so you stay on track and up to speed, make sure you catch next week's Drive.